What it do, cucks? It's your boy the hater up in this mug, and it's time for a video that has been requested by one of you, and quite frankly, one that I wanted to make anyways. So here it is, cucks. This video is about the curious case of none other than Austin Theory. Now, given the fact that Austin Theory has a stupid ass name, I think all of us were wrong and should have seen it coming, right? What the hell does Austin Theory mean? That's not a common last name. It's clearly someone thinking that they have a cool word on their hand and putting it behind someone's name to make him sound cool. Nah. Now, despite the dumbass name, Austin Theory undoubtedly, motherfucks, undoubtedly was someone that had potential. You can make the argument that Austin Theory still has potential. I don't know if that argument is something that I would buy, but given that he's 27 years old, anything is possible. Now, why did Austin Theory fail? First of all, he failed, in my personal opinion, immediately in NXT. He was put in this infantile role of being like the son figure of like Candice LeRae and Johnny Gargano, right? Where they had that weird family thing, right? And he's like, mommy and daddy, like, what the fuck is this, man? Look at this guy. This guy should be introduced like a Randy Orton. You know what I mean? He should be introduced as like a great athlete who can do crazy shit. Number two, he had a dumbass finisher. The TKO is an overplayed and outdated finisher that you see people do for free on like AEW, all right? Then he did the dumbass version of it where he drops the person on the knee. You know, none of these moves are interesting. He has like another move that he does, which has a weird name, I forget what it's called, which acts like, I think it's called like asphyxia or something like that, I don't know. Basically, it's like this complicated move. He can't do it on everybody, but it looks cool at least, right? This guy doesn't need, you know, this epic type of move. He can just have like a regular ass move because his appearance is his strong suit, right? This guy has an incredible physique and he's got crazy arms. You know, like he had a feud with Lashley, if you remember, and he was like flexing his arms on Lashley and like Lashley flexed his arms. And I was like, oh, you know, like Lashley's arms are bigger, but fucking that's Lashley. You know what I mean? Like Austin Theory's arms are like marginally smaller. Like in a few years, they could be bigger than Lashley's. You know what I mean? This guy has every gift that is needed to do well in wrestling in terms of his presentation, right? He is a little bit weird looking, I'm not gonna lie. You know, I think he's a classically handsome guy, but he's got this like dumbass look, you know what I mean? Some people have this dumbass look on their face, like Keanu Reeves is another one, right? He's obviously a good looking guy, but he has this like perpetually confused look, right? Whereas like a Cena or an Orton or someone like that, or even a Cucky Rhodes, they have this like more intellectual like appearance to their face, right? So, but that is what it is. That's his face cut. Can't change that shit, you know? But anyways, Austin Theory then gets moved on to the main roster several times. But when he gets moved on to the main roster, not in the pandemic era, but when he gets moved on to the main roster as Austin Theory, the guy that's going to be on the main roster, he is presented without any reference to that horse shit that I mentioned that happened on NXT. This was a good move, obviously. You have to steer away from that shit because it was patently retarded. Now, he is exactly what he's supposed to be, a blue chip prospect. His introduction was very similar to that of Drew McIntyre back in the day. He was the chosen one in many ways, and he was the chosen one by none other than Vincent Kennedy McMahon. And they had these little vignettes, right? These little backstage segments where Austin Theory is trying to like impress Vince McMahon, right? Now, that's fine, you know what I mean? He's new, it's understandable, but they should have given him like more confidence. You know, I think that's the problem. It's like, he's a character, like if he's gonna play a gimmick, he has two options, motherfuckers, let's be honest. He has two options. He's gonna play like the overconfident douchebag gimmick, also known as the Dolph Ziggler, or he's gonna just play the John Cena, the I don't have a gimmick and I'm here to wrestle. You know, that's his range, right? But that's enough for someone like him. That's not enough for like Gunther or Ilya Dragunov, but it's enough for someone like him. But instead, they opted with a third option. They give him this cuckish, nebbish, like, I'm not that confident. I got to impress Vince McMahon guy, while simultaneously he pretends to be confident. It was really, really weird. It was a recipe for disaster, as we would soon see. Eventually, he gets the US title, which is appropriate for someone of his caliber and his experience, right? This guy is headed for places, we're all thinking, right? Eventually, this all culminates with several important feuds. He has a feud with Lashley for the US title. Lashley was destined to do bigger things as well. So even if he loses this feud, it's whatever. He's losing to the guy that's going to be like the world champ, right? Or even if he beats him, even better, right? It's kind of like the Tony D'Angelo Obafemi situation, right? Like Obafemi doesn't lose anything if Tony D'Angelo beats him for the mid-card title, right? Because Obafemi is then going to move on to the NXT title, Slowly but surely, he's moving towards it. Now, with that being said, obviously the highest level of his career is when he wrestled and beat John Cena at WrestleMania. This was supposed to be a career-making moment, but there's two problems. Number one, nobody gave a fuck. And number two, Cena's stock had fallen down so much because he didn't show up significantly, right? And he hadn't won a match in a minute. So this didn't even feel like the big of a deal. It should have been a massive deal. Then, to put the shit on the cake and the cherry on top of the shit, Austin Theory does the unthinkable. He wins the Money in the Bank. So you're thinking to yourself, all right, at like 23 or 24, whatever the fuck it was a few years ago, right? He wins the Money in the Bank. So it's like, all right, this guy's definitely made. No matter what you do, you cannot deny that this guy will one day be world champion. Well, guess what, motherfucks? Wrench in the plans. At this point, I think all of us would bet our hats that this guy would at least have some sort of title run. However, you can bet your hat that that's not what happened. All of a sudden, the dumbass rules of the Money in the Bank get changed. And all of a sudden, the rule is that using Money in the Bank, if you are retarded, you can go after another title instead of the world title. Why anyone would do this is beyond me. It is beyond all reasonable comprehension. Now, this cannot be blamed on Austin Theory. As a matter of fact, a lot of the things that happened to him cannot be blamed on him, right? But he doesn't stand out otherwise. So that part, he has to take the blame for that, The same way that, for example, when Carmelo Hayes failed and when Trick Williams will inevitably fail, right? Like, a lot of it cannot be blamed on them, but it's like there's a difference between being, Carmelo Hayes and being Daniel Bryan. Like, I fucking hate to say it. I think Carmelo's better than Daniel Bryan, but Daniel Bryan got himself over. You got to be able to do that shit, motherfucks. So the reality is, he gets the Money in the Bank and he cashes it in for the United States title. This is probably the dumbest decision ever made. It would be better to write the Money in the Bank briefcase off the storyline by saying that he lost it in a fire. Literally, that would be, he lost it. He left it at the mall and it's lost forever, right? Or to have it expire somehow, or I don't know, do anything with it other than devalue the Money in the Bank and make it so you can go after the US title. It's fucking retarded. You should have a US title Money in the Bank if that's how it's going to be. The Money in the Bank gives you a world title opportunity. That was the point. And the reality is you can cash it in at any time you want. So the whole philosophy is it doesn't matter who wins the Money in the Bank. They all are going to get an advantage, right? They're all going to get an advantage. The person's going to cash in when the champion is dead, and they're going to pin their ass. That's what you're supposed to do. That's how it's been used in the past. But this was the catalyst, the straw that broke the camel's back. The fact is that Austin Theory using it for the US title, in my personal opinion, really told us a lot. It told us that the company sees this guy as a mid-carder, but more importantly, they see him as a guy that they thought may have been a world champion, but that now is going to be relegated to the mid-card for the foreseeable future. Then after this, he forms what has to go down as one of the worst tag teams in the history of wrestling. A-Town Down Under, which also simultaneously, from being the worst tag team or one of the worst tag teams of all time, has by far the worst tag team name of all time. These dumbass tag team names where they take 2 or 3 words associated with one guy and portmanteau it with 2 or 3 other words associated with the other guy never work out. They're always lame. Remember Evan Bourne and Kofi Kingston, which became Air Boom? And it was called Air Boom because Kofi would do the thunderclap because he thought he was Jamaican, and Evan Bourne liked to be in the air. Like, this is fucking retarded. Like, who comes up with this shit? Like, I can't believe Vince McMahon okayed this. This is just insane, right? Like, remember that time when Billy Gunn and the Big Show were forming a tag team? This is like a very forgettable moment because it was only for like 2 weeks. And like the ongoing storyline was Billy Gunn would like bother Vince McMahon and try to find out like what he thought of their tag team names, right? And then like he was like, "What do you think about like the Shoguns?" Which, by the way, is like 1,000 times better than like Air Boom and obviously A-Town Down Under. The Shoguns. Think about that. Like Shogun, like the Japanese feudal lords, and it's Big Show, and obviously like Billy Gunn, and they both have big guns, right? So that's the idea, right? And he's like, "Vince, what do you think about Shoguns?" And Vince McMahon says, "I don't care what you call your double trouble, poop on a stick like tag team." And then Billy Gunn says, "Double trouble. I like that." And this was supposed to be like a cringy joke. But honestly, Double Trouble is better. Like, even though Double Trouble is retarded, it's better than A-Town Down Under. It's like, how did one person not say, "This is fucking retarded"? But anyways, I digress. We get A-Town Down Under, which is the worst tag team of all time on every level, right? They've been arguing for like 3 years. Grayson Waller's in his mid-30s, so for him, this is perfectly acceptable. But Austin Theory's like 10 years younger than him, motherfucker. Why is Austin Theory being saddled down with this jobber Grayson Waller? It's been so long now that I think any reasonable person would conclude that Austin Theory also is a jobber. As a matter of fact, I am one of those reasonable people, and I have concluded exactly that. So what can be done to save him? Well, the good thing that I've mentioned already is that Austin Theory is still a youngin', right? He is still only 27. Most people don't even start getting like their foot in the door until they're like MJF, for example, is almost 30. He hasn't even gotten his foot in the door yet in WWE. Austin Theory is like 5 years ahead of him, right? But as we've seen, it doesn't just matter when you get into the WWE. The timing of it matters, right? In terms of like how long you have until you retire. But the timing has another conceptualization, right? The Greeks used to call this kairos, right? The meaning a measurement of time that mashes up with opportunity, right? So for example, like R-Truth is entering a kairos moment right now, right? R-Truth is 53. The timing couldn't be worse, but this is when it's happening, right? Same thing with Kofi Kingston. All of a sudden, randomly, it's like, oh, Kofi Mania is happening, right? These things you cannot predict a lot of the times. So does Austin Theory have a kairos moment? I believe that he does. You know what I'm saying? However, for better or for worse, I mean, it's probably not going to happen. It's probably not going to happen. I mean, again, he's so young that, like, I could see, for example, him getting released, going to New Japan, becoming a star, and then being signed like 5-6 years later. And he'd still be in his early 30s. So he'd still have his prime ahead of him. You know what I mean? Or AEW or wherever, right? This is still possible. But then, if that happens, he still has to, like, overcome the insurmountable odds that it takes to be a big deal, period, right? Because, like, someone else could be in a better position than him, right? So, for example, like, look at Ricky Starks or Ricky Saints, as they call him. Like, nobody gives a fuck about this guy anymore, right? He came, he went, it feels like. If tomorrow he gets released, no one's going to be upset. So, he could easily be in a Ricky Starks position in 10 years, right? Or he could be the Cody Rhodes. Who knows? That remains to be seen. The problem that I have with this is that his improvement, the only things he needs to improve are like his mic skills. Like, but basically almost everyone, except for like The Rock and Cena, and that's basically it. Everyone else can improve their mic skills. Oh, and then The Miz. The Rock, Cena, and The Miz have no need to improve. Everybody else, Cocky, Roman, Randy Orton, all these guys could improve their mic skills. So he needs to work on that, and he needs to just hope, right? And maybe he needs to go like bitch and moan a little bit, right? Because a lot of times when people bitch and moan, they go from like being a complete nobody like CM Punk to being a complete somebody like CM Punk, right? So with that being said, I hope this video was entertaining for you. It sure as shit was entertaining for your boy. And with that being said, That's how it is, and that's how it's gonna be. You can bet your hat that the hater will be right about this one too. Cucksters.